different kind of an example. The first one was with Slovenia, and now we are focusing on São Paulo, and we brought with us to talk Beatriz and Rodrigo. So the agenda will be this one. I will shortly introduce Tondo, just a couple of minutes. After me, there will be Riceri, who will present what are the circular city and will link the strategy that São Paulo did to develop to become more circular. After that, there will be Beatriz Luz from Exchange for Change that will introduce some of the action they have implemented. And after, there will be Rodrigo Oliveira presenting his own startup that is green mining and the activity they are developing. So I will jump my part because I already done last time. So what is Tondo? So Tondo is a no-profit organization that aims to be a bridge between universities, startups, corporates and institutions and people. So we do in general just three kind of activities. One is knowledge. So we favor the implementation of innovation through research and studies. One study we are developing at the moment is focusing on circular fashion in the north of Italy. The other activity that we focus quite a lot is on the ecosystem. So first of all, by being an association, we are open to everyone who wants to join. So we are ourselves an ecosystem, but we are doing many other activities to further develop this ecosystem. On top of that, we also try to be a project. So we are not just a think tank, but we like to define ourselves as an action tank. So we see problems and we involve startups, research institutes, and other actors that might be relevant to implement this project. For example, now we are working on a project regarding cigarette butts. Regarding the ecosystem, what we are trying to do, we think that in this moment, the scenario is quite critical. So in order to face such a critical scenario, we have developed an ecosystem that is composed by three main elements. One is Tondo, that is a no-profit organization that has a focus mainly on people, involving people, research institutes, public institutions, mainly to develop knowledge and test new solutions. And so it's mainly on an early stage. Another important element is Rethink. With the Rethink, we are mainly want to create engagement and showcase a new possible solution, and also create an international environment. And the third element is our benefit corporation that has been created by the people of Tondo, just to quickly implement solutions that have been already showcased as something that is working. So, so mainly Tondo now is, so Novu is mainly working on three main elements that are education, so favoring the explaining elements about the circular economy and climate change action, making analysis of the clean tech trend and supporting the creation of new ventures, and finally helping the matching between startups and corporate to help to sustain, to help that large corporation and startups match together. So now I would like to introduce Riceri, that will be the host of this session. I stop sharing my screen and I let him sharing his own screen.
Okay, hello everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello everyone. Thank you, Francesco and the team of Tondo for the opportunity to be here today hosting the webinar. And thank you very much, Beatriz and Rodrigo, for accepting the invitation to share with us the amazing experiences you're having in São Paulo driving forward the circular transition. To briefly introduce myself, my name is Riceri Marchi. I'm a lawyer specialized in business law and sustainable development. I am experienced with law firms and green startups in Latin America and Europe. And I'm currently a partner of Linfa Ingenious, which is a spin-off of the three major universities of Milan, where we combine innovative materials and design of biotechnology for sustainable uses, focusing on microalgae. I'm also a PhD student of the program on Law and Economics for Sustainable Development at the University of Milan, and I focus my research on how legal frameworks can foster innovation for resilient economic models, such as circular economy. So before we go to our case study today, I would briefly like to recap the concepts that Shai brought on the last episode. For who missed the last episode or are not very familiar with circular economy, and to better understand why are we exploring circular economy in São Paulo on this episode. So we saw that our global use of resources has been increasing dramatically, and it's tended to double on the next 30 years if we keep on our same production system. And we also saw that we still pretty much on a take, make, and waste mindset of a linear economy, that only 8.5% of our resources are recycled and put back into our production system. And according to the Environment Agency, the European Environmental Agency, we saw how much this production system is pushing our environmental and planetary boundaries, especially with the biogeochemical flows and biosphere integrity, causing, for example, biodiversity loss. Also, problems as climate change are strictly linked to our production system. So we saw also how circular economy presents us with a systemic approach to gradually decouple our economic growth from the consumption and extraction of finite resources. And we saw how through the well-known butterfly graphic from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, that we can identify many ways, both in the biological cycle and the technological cycle, to put back resources into our productive system. Also, I think it's very interesting to note that the smaller the loop, both activity-wise and geographically, the more profitable and resource efficient it will be. So this brings us to the question of why to look into cities when we're talking about circular economy. So we also saw that cities are huge resource users, and also a center for population. We have more than half of the world's population living in cities, and this proportion tends to only go higher. Cities emit 70% of global CO2, and they consume 2/3 of energy. So cities are also the ideal testing ground for circular economy, because they not only concentrate the resources, but they also concentrate different stakeholders, making it very efficient as a focal point for innovation and engagement. We also saw from the graphic of Smart City Expo Congress that there are many different strategies that cities can use to reduce their input of raw materials in sectors such as mobility, energy, and built environment, for example. But a very interesting approach, and this is where our specific point of the webinar today will start, is if we look at the CSCP guidebook for cities, we see that it brings a very interesting classification based on the work of John Macomber, who is a senior lecturer at the Harvard Business School. And they bring this approach by dividing the strategies for circular cities according to legacy or pioneering cities, and if they are located in emerging or developed economies. So to understand the importance of these different approaches, we can use the World Bank development indicators. And if we do it, we note that for the past decade, much has been said about circular initiatives in high-income cities, such as Amsterdam in the Netherlands and Copenhagen in Denmark. But the challenges that these cities are tackling are very linked to the reduction of resources and energy consumption, and dealing with climate change, but also dealing with shrinking populations and sometimes with the withdrawal of the welfare state. But if we move lower on the income threshold, where a vast majority of the world population is, and also many of the resources, we are going to deal with development gaps that intensify the lower we go on the income thresholds. And these development gaps will also be dealing with the high intensity in labor in these economies that heavily rely on the extraction of raw materials. So this fact makes these economies extremely vulnerable to the volatility of the prices of these commodities, and also to the price shocks on the globalized market. So in those middle and low income economies, cities must face different challenges that are related generally to fast increase in urban populations, waste generation, and air pollution. Also, low access to social services and basic infrastructures is a challenge to those cities in lower income economies. So how can economies that depend upon intense resource extraction take advantage of a new regenerative economic model? Well, for those countries, there's a huge potential in considering the role of their informal economy and to develop their infrastructure already in a circular model. So in this sense, some very interesting initiatives are now arising in different continents on middle and low income economies, such as the Circular Economy Promotion Law in China, the Indian Resource Panel, or the African Circular Economy Alliance launched last year. So we must enlarge our view to the importance of exchange between countries to understand what are the benchmark initiatives doing on the leading sustainable and circular cities, but also what synergies we can create with the lower income realities. And with a broader perspective in mind, we would like to take the chance in this episode to explore circular cities in a different context. So we moved from Ljubljana, which is a high-income European green capital, to São Paulo, which is an upper middle-income Latin American metropolis of huge proportions. So in Ljubljana, we saw that the circular transition started from the top, so directly by the mayor's plan set through the Vision 2025, and it was implemented by a series of bottom-up initiatives engaging citizens and business. We saw that also a variety of European funding instruments were used to support those initiatives, and as well as a well-deserved international recognition being the European Green Capital in 2016. So Ljubljana's transition was made with a clear vision and a citizen-centric implementation, very much aligned with the developed economy pioneer city model, as we saw before. São Paulo, in another hand, displays the typical features of an emerging economy legacy city. So with a metropolitan region that hosts more than 21 million inhabitants, it's the fourth largest in the world, and the GDP of $431 billion is ranked the 10th worldwide. So São Paulo is definitely a sleepless mega hub. It's known for its huge helicopter fleet, traffic congestion, and unpredictable weather that gave him the nickname of Terra da Garoa, which means the land of drizzle. Also, São Paulo Latin motto means I lead, I'm not led, which is easily associated with its financial and business vocation. But when we talk about sustainability, sometimes it would refer to sustainable models as the neighbor capital Curitiba. But in recent years, São Paulo has been attracting a growing attention to the circular economy initiatives that are taking place, and we will explore it now. So taking into account the feedbacks from the last episode, and in order to present methodologies that can be used to explore how cities are driving their circular transition, today we will start to analyze São Paulo through the urban policy levers classification brought by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. So in this methodology, we have 10 policy levers as key to the urban circular economy transition divided in 5 categories. So we have the vision, setting strategic goals. Then we have the engagement, bringing together the multiple stakeholders and catalyzing action, as well as raising awareness and building up capacity. We have urban management, setting the design, the use and the flows of materials in the city. We have economic incentives, fostering innovation and new markets. And we have regulation, so designing the behavior and removing the barriers that might block the progress of circular economy in the city. Also, it's important to note that the use of certain levers can vary a lot from city to city, and many of the levers can be strongly interconnected and involve the tires of higher government levels, such as the federal or the state level. And we will see how this will influence the implementation of circular economy in the next slides. So starting with the vision, we can mention 2 very important roadmaps that were published in the past year, both in the national level as the circular economy strategic path for the industry, and the local level as the circular economy of food by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And it's very interesting to note that in the publishing of Ellen MacArthur Foundation for Food in São Paulo, this roadmap was majorly published in partnership with Intesa São Paulo, which is a bank from northern Italy, very close to us here in Milan. And this shows us in practice the importance of exchange between the actors. Alongside setting the vision and building up the roadmaps, it's essential for the city to engage with different stakeholders through convening and partnerships that will help to build capacity and raise awareness on circular economy. So in this regard, we can point some relevant partnerships that took place in São Paulo in the last couple of years. In 2015, Circular Economy 100 Brazil was launched in the São Paulo metropolitan area on the headquarters of Natura. In 2016, the University of São Paulo became a Ellen MacArthur Foundation Pioneer University. That same year, São Paulo was awarded with Bloomberg's Mayor's Challenge Award for a project called Linking the Dots that was using digital technologies to improve the access to markets of farmers in the outskirts of the city and reduce urban sprawl, promote sustainable land use, and preserve the city's water supply. And last year, we can mention that São Paulo adhered the C40 network, and this helped on the creation of the municipality cross-sector committee to draft the climate change action plan. Also last year, São Paulo was selected as one of the 3 flagship cities for the Ellen MacArthur Food Initiative, alongside New York and London. And last year, also, São Paulo had a special mention award on food waste for the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact. So the engagement and the awards that we've mentioned, they are interlinked results of the initiatives conducted also through urban management, which is the 3rd element of the policy levers. And urban management consists also of urban planning, asset management, and public procurement. In the recent years, we can point in São Paulo that urban mobility measures were brought forward. From 2014 to 2018, São Paulo introduced the electric bus fleet, added more than 300 kilometers of priority bus lines, and 400 kilometers of cycling lanes, which also created the environment for some incipient bike sharing initiatives, even though São Paulo is quite hilly. And then, as already mentioned, the Climate Change Action Plan, and this year, the Multi-Stakeholder Commission on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals are very important key drivers for the urban policy in São Paulo. So, taking into account the interlink between urban management and the 2 last categories of levers that are economic incentives and regulations, it's very important to highlight that the degree of autonomy of cities to pull these levers can vary a lot. And Often they're developed, the last two levers, in partnership with the higher tiers of government, as you mentioned. So this graphic from the C40 network shows us quite interestingly that we can see the interdependency of the administrative power levels in São Paulo applied to a number of topics concerning the circular economy. For example, we can see that regarding water and energy supply, these powers are more limited. And regarding, for example, city roads, public buildings, or waste, the mayor can perform the urban management with more independence. So in the case of Brazil, it's also important to mention that the constitution establishes the federalism in 3 levels of government. So we have the federal government nationwide, then the state governments at the regional level, and municipalities at the local level. And economic incentives through fiscal measures, for example, would be subject to a very complex tax law competency regime that will demand cooperation between these government tiers. But obviously it's not impossible, and cities play a huge role in pushing forward this innovation on regulations. So to bring theory closer to practice, I would like to bring the solid waste case. As pointed by the industry roadmap publishing that we saw before, at the national level, Brazil doesn't have a specific circular economy plan, but the national solid waste policy is considered a legal framework that leads the addressing of circular economy tools nationwide. Still, they point that there are many challenges regarding measures to foster research, technologies, and business models for circular economy. And the city of São Paulo, on its hand, which is the municipal level, applied a different set of policies and regulations with stricter requirements and comprehensive tools that enable the engagement of business and citizens. So for example, the major waste generators laws and the integrated waste management plan. So these measures allow the concentration of resources and stakeholders in the city to create innovative solutions that could be developed and tested within the city, and that now can be scaled up to regional and national levels. So to better understand how this transition is happening in practice, I'm going to leave the floor to Beatriz Luz, who's the founder of Exchange for Change, catalyzing circular ecosystem in São Paulo, and then to Rodrigo, who's the founder of Green Mining, a startup using digital technologies to disrupt the reverse logistics in São Paulo, and partnering with InBev, which is the largest brewery company in the world. We can see that these strategies are very aligned with the emerging economy legacy city paradigm as we see before. So Beatriz.
Well, thank you very much, Chieri and Francesco, for the invitation. I'm very honored to be here with you, sharing our experiences. It's very much in the essence of Exchange for Change Brazil, changing knowledge to change Brazil and bringing solutions that influence the transition to the circular economy in Brazil. So I'll share my screen. Can you see? So yes. Good? Okay. So I decided to put my talk in a way that I will introduce myself, demonstrating how was my drive to change the status quo and become a catalyzer for the circular economy. And throughout our journey, the 4 learnings that I had on the way, and then finally the Brazilian Circular Economy Hub that I've initiated just the beginning of this year. So I'm a chemical engineer. I graduated in Rio de Janeiro. And right after my graduation, I went to do my master's in the UK. And after that, I started to develop a very critical mindset, working with businesses and materials flow and the National Industrial Symbiosis Program. And it was very interesting to see the approach in the UK for dealing with companies and all this materials flow. And it was matching very nicely with my degree of chemical engineer, in which my final year project was about looking at a power station and the ashes that resulted from the burning and what I could do with that ash. So you can see that in the early days of my studies, I was already looking at the basics steps of circular economy. So trying to look at the value of waste, how to create synergies between people and companies to exchange materials. And finally, in 2010, I came back to Brazil and I started working with the plastic industry at Braskem. And I had the opportunity to work with a biopolymer. Braskem is not only the largest plastic manufacturer in Brazil, but the world's biggest producer of a biopolymer made out of sugarcane. And this was when I started to look into circular economy and understanding that we needed to look at the full circle. It wasn't just enough to have a renewable material if you didn't know how to deal with that material at the end of your use phase. So in 2014 was the launch of the circular economy package in Europe. My role in the company was to deal with the international clients. So I was exposed to all this discussion and the drive to launch a new economic model that look at the whole cycle of the materials, and that we shouldn't generate waste. So that was when I decided to launch Exchange for Change Brazil. In 2015 was the launch phase, and I will follow. It's very nice to see it now. In this month, it's our 5th anniversary, so we are celebrating this long 5 years of work influencing the transition to the circular economy in Brazil. So my first learning was about connecting the dots. So it's very important if you want to influence the transition to the circular economy, to be independent. You need to be able to speak with all parts of the value chain. So I built my network of international partners, and the idea was to be able to co-create and adapt solutions to the Brazilian reality. And the first question that I had in my mind was learning from Michael Brogarten, are we protecting the environment if we destroy less? This for me is one of the basic questions of circular economy, because it's not just about being more efficient or producing more with less, because with that, we're just gonna delay the use of materials. And exactly based on what Richetti said, we need to start looking at new business models, new ways of growth. So it's not just about efficiency, it's about effectiveness. So I realized that I needed partners to bring this value proposition to Brazil and to influence the debate about a new economic model. The second learning was about education. We needed to educate the market in order to demonstrate the business opportunities. So we started with a partnership with the Netherlands, and we created a study group. We created a journey in Rio de Janeiro with lots of focus groups. And during the Olympic Games, we had a very interesting event where we put together the Dutch companies and the Brazilian companies to share experiences, and by doing that, creating inspirational models for the Brazilian companies. I realized that we really needed, as Richeri mentioned, those pillars for the urban policy levers. We needed to bring the industry together in order for them to understand the benefits for that transition. So at the end of 2017, we launched a book that is available for download, with all the learnings from all these debates between Dutch experts and Brazilian companies. And we feel that education is the basic step for the circular transition. So this is our study group. We have now, we are on the 3rd year. We have ambassadors spread around the country, and we are going to be launching also a new book at the end of this year. We also, in order to bring the public involvement, we carried out training and events with the National Bank, with the innovation body, in order to create the awareness and get them on board to be able to create the policy levers and the finance base for the transition. So basically, the first understanding that we tell the market is that circular economy is not about just solving problems and reducing waste or closing the loop. It's about changing the system and avoiding the problem. So we see that we need to grow in a different way. We come up with this kind of 3 new R's for circular economy. So we first need to reevaluate the production process, review values, attitudes, and especially the relationships between the companies and the value chain. And the 3rd point is redefine products and consumption. So basically, we needed to present to the market. The 3rd learning was the companies need to understand what is the value creation behind circular economy, that it's about how to be future-proof, creating a new mindset and integrating the value chain. So we talked about risks. There are 4 risks they are highlighted by circular economy. If we continue with the growth in the model, that's the existing model, we have the risk of running out of materials. So we need to move towards renewable materials. Competitiveness, we need to design products in a way that they can be modular, durable, the obsolescence, and products that are not meant to last for a long time. With a now engaged consumer, they don't go back to you for a new product. They will go to the competition. So companies need to evaluate how they are designing products and what kind of solutions they are placing to the market. The 3rd risk is about conflict. We need to work towards a more collaborative model throughout the value chain. We cannot work in isolation anymore. And the more we integrate the value chain, the more knowledge we have in the value chain, and the less risk of conflicts among the players. And the 4th risk is about survival. We need to adapt for the new reality. And I guess the new pandemic is demonstrating to us how vulnerable we are, how connected we are, and the need for us to work together and have this systemic view and evaluate our process. So I will bring some examples of how we are working with the companies to create the awareness and the importance of circular economy. We had an event in 2018 with Tomra Solutions, which was very important to highlight to all the companies the need to integrate the value chain. So basically, we invited all actors of the plastic sector to sit on a panel and discuss the opportunities around recycling, but with the views of every single actor. So a recycler, a resin manufacturer, a waste manager, and a big brand owner. And in fact, this event was with Ambev, Rodrigo. So the debate was very interesting because they realized that they have never spoken to each other in that kind of level and willingness to see the other part of the value chain in a different way. So this has shown to us the need to have this independent actor to work and integrate all actors of the value chain. So we had a very interesting work with Gerdau, and the steel manufacturing view for the future is that you will reduce the mining and you increase material use in a way that more materials will be in circulation. After that, we had a project with Electrolux. They launched their new vision to be a carbon neutral and a circular company. And this was the first insight that we had about creating this ecosystem, because Gerdau wanted to bring steel waste from the market, and Electrolux needed to bring their products in reverse logistics and do something with that materials, the products there in the market. So there was an opportunity there and a link to connect both. This was another product, very interesting, with money and notes. They are very toxic materials, and they have to be discarded in an appropriate way. Casa da Moeda do Brazil, producing the notes, they didn't know what to do with the waste, and the material could not be just disposed because they were toxic. So we created a synergy and merged Equipa Brazil to not only produce products out of that material, but to bring these products as a service to the market, because the product has to be, the material as being toxic, they had to be traceable by the company. So we couldn't just transform and put it into the market. So the solution was there, the technology was there, but we needed to develop a new business model. And this was only able to do with this joint effort. We developed, together with the Circular Economy Club, events to look at opportunities for cities. We had last year an event with the city of São Paulo, where we highlighted the work that they've done with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And it was very interesting to look at different materials and gathering companies with a common objective to find solutions. So basically, the first message that we present to the business is that we have to look beyond the surface to have any strategy for circular economy. It's not just about materials flow, product design, and recycling. We have to develop new commercial relationships, make an offer of performance in our products, not just the product, and work along the value chain. So that was how we come up with a suitable ecosystem, a unique system that ends together key companies from all different parts of the value chain to work committed to break barriers and make the circular economy work in Brazil. We worked alongside several other ecosystems as benchmarks, and this has been a work, a long-standing work since 2019, and we are now having a lot of training. We believe that now is the time to continue to bring information to the business, to inspire them, to demonstrate that now is the time to change, to reset our economy, to work with different models and different partners. The great thing about these webinars is that we can reach a lot of people like the one today. And one message, important message, is that we had 39% of industry representatives. So it's demonstrating that the industry is becoming more and more interesting around circular economy. So we have 4 areas of work: communication, engagement, education, and solutions, which is very much in line with what Richieri said about the urban policy levers. And we work in different categories of companies. And the idea is to have the individual view and build this collective intelligence to be able to connect and find the synergies among the companies to scale the projects. We believe that in order to really follow the transition, we need to think of these 5 steps. We need to think of scale, innovation, and partnerships. Circular economy needs long-term investment and a future vision. Otherwise, it's just going to be a particular project that goes alongside the companies without changing the mindset. So there are 3 circular motivations that we realize that business seek. So one is the mission, the other one is working on risks or opportunities. So we try to gather all the companies to work together on looking at the opportunities. And the idea of the Circular Economy Brazilian Hub is to build leadership. So we've seen that the Green Recovery Plan for post-COVID economy is very much based on this new way of working together, sharing knowledge. So we see that the CEOs, not just the government, is taking a position, and this is what we're intending to do with Brazil. These are the companies that are involved. And just as a wrap up, the 4 learnings along the way is that we need an independent body to orchestrate and catalyze these solutions. We need education because it's not just about recycling and materials flow. It's about value creation. It's about knowing how to speak to the business and bringing them over to work together. So circular economy is about business opportunity, is about finding a new equilibrium, a new productive model, and is about courage. So I just finished with a message from Simon Sinek. I really like that sentence that he says that courage isn't the lack of fear, it's being afraid and doing anyway. So I guess all the circular change makers, they have to have the courage to break the status quo and promote a different growth model. Thank you.
Thank you, Beatriz. It was really inspiring. We are a little bit in delay. So Rodrigo, we're gonna cut minimum the Q&A at the end, or probably we're gonna finish a little bit more late this time. So I'll let Rodrigo, you should stop sharing your screen, Beatriz. Stop sharing, it's on top. Okay, now Rodrigo, you can share it.
Okay, so first, thank you very much for the invitation. Very honored to be here. Richieri, Francesco, and everyone from Tondo. I'll share my screen here just to introduce myself. And during the presentation, I'll do some highlights that I think are important to everyone. So first, thank you, everyone. My name is Rodrigo Oliveira. I'm the founder and CEO of Green Mining. I'm a business administrator. I worked 10 years in the industry with marketing and sales, like companies like Natura, Unilever, and Suzano Pulp and Paper. And for the last 10 years, working at Frau Consultancy, an engineering company on projects for landfill and waste disposal. I'm also a member of a glass work group at City Council of São Paulo. So to start with, let me see if it's working. Is it working? Not changing mine.
The arrow there.
Let me do it again.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, perfectly.
Thanks. So I always like to start, I know it's old for someone, but to start asking everyone that when we say that we're gonna throw something away, it must go somewhere, because when we look to our planet, the thing is that there's no way. That's why I'm so in love to work with reverse logistics. Green mining started and was created inside the accelerator program 100 plus of AB InBev. So as Richeri said, AB InBev is this largest beer company, owner of brands of like Budweiser and Beck's. I would like to make the first highlight saying that when they launched their sustainable goals and went to the market asking startups to help them solve those problems, it was for real. And it's very important to anyone, any startup or any entrepreneur that is over here. If you want to enroll, I encourage you to do it because it's a very serious program. They give to the participants $100,000 to make their POC and to take the MVP out of the paper. So this is a very important highlight, and that's how Green Mining was born. So the problem that we face, everyone know, waste is all over, a very big problem in the big cities mainly, but everyone has a social and environmental responsibility on the waste. In Brazil, the problem is a little bit deeper because we just collect 2.1% of the recycled material. Most part of what is collected is done by informal workers, people with no personal protection, no labor rights, and really no dignity. On the other hand, the recycling market is huge. We are talking about almost $300 billion market, and we are dumping it and we're throwing all this money in the trash. So to solve those problems and to explore those opportunities, we created Green Mining to close the loop in the circular economy. So we adopted the urban mining concept to look into the cities and find the hotspots where we can bring material back in a cost-efficient way. So we just do the collection between the consumption and put it back into recycling plants, recycling facilities. How do we do this? We developed a lot of systems. We have more than 6 systems going on right now, and now I'll bring the 3 most important of them to have efficient collection. First one, we call the Waste Finder. Waste Finder is a system that we treat the sales data from consumer good industry to find where their waste, this post-packaging waste, will be generated. So once we find in a georeferencing way the hotspots, you can see the red points right here, we can install an efficient collecting hub. So the collecting hub is a very low cost operation, I would say, with a big wagon in a parking lot. And now our collectors, which are ex-speakers, ex-informal workers that we hired, we signed contract with them. So now they have all the labor rights. We hire them to make the collection in about 2 kilometer radius. So they go to bars, restaurants, hotels, places with high volume of and concentration volume of waste being generated. And every single bag that is collected is weighted and we put in our system in a smartphone. So we have all the traceability of the material. And one of the most important things is that our second highlight is the sort at source. This concept is key to make our operation works well, because we don't have to transportate to a sorting facility like a MRF. We avoid also the cost of the sorting of the energy and everything inside the MRF. And we have a better, cleaner material, better quality material to put back into the recycling chain. So we cut all the middlemen and sent the material straight from the hub to a recycling plant. So the key success factor for us is how to structure the economic incentive. So in this case, bars, restaurants, and hotels, they don't have anymore to pay for collection, because we collect those recyclables sorted for free. So that's why they sort. So I would like a help from Antonella. I'll put a quiz for everyone here, and the answer will be in the end of the presentation.
So do you want me to launch now?
Yeah, please. Can you?
Okay, can you see?
Yes. So I'll just read it out loud. So would you start sorting your recyclables waste on multiple streams? So glass with glass, PET with PET, paper with paper at your home if you get 10% off your energy bill. So do I have to give time, or everybody can just keep on answering, Antonella?
Yes, we will wait just for a few seconds more. So we have the majority of the people attending this webinar voting. So a few seconds more, and then I will share the results.
Can you share the results only in the end?
Yeah, only in the end. Okay, perfect.
Perfect. So tell me when I can continue.
Yeah, you can continue.
All right. So I have to, okay. So the third system that we put on the street, let's say, is the traceability system, where we trace every material, every wagon that comes out of our hub till it gets to a recycling plant. So through a real georeferencing way with GPS in a truck or in the smartphone of the driver, we can trace and track every material to guarantee that when you sort your material, I guarantee to you with a 100% compliance that it's gonna be recycled. And why do I need to do this? First, because we have no labor problems. So we have 100% compliance on labor and on guaranteeing the material is gonna be taken to a recycling plant. You see my third highlight, just for an example. In the beginning of this year, Malaysia returned 42 containers of illegal plastic waste to UK. A company was fined, and when they say they export 63% of their plastic to be recycled, actually people think they're recycling a mere of 4%. So if you don't have traceability, you don't know the truth. You don't know if what you're doing is really gonna be recycled. That's why traceability is so important for you and for government. So our business model in green mining, we do reverse logistics as a service. So when consumer good companies hire us to collect material and put it back on their recycling chain so they can have their bottles with recycled material. How do we do this? We cut the middlemen, the local middleman, the regional middleman. We don't have transportation for sorting facility. We don't have the cost of a sorting facility. So we can now pay the correct value of the operation, the formalizing labors, and the rest is logistics. So we can get to a recycling facility at the same price. So it's not an overprice because we're doing the right thing. It's the same price because we cut the middlemen. We started about a year ago, January actually of 2018. And till March, we had one hub. And from March to now, we already have 18 hubs, most part in São Paulo. We also have Rio de Janeiro and Brasilia. We collected more than 900 tons of material and avoided 150 tons of CO2 emissions. It's good to say that we become partner of Friends of Glass, our European association. We are the first company outside Europe partner of them. We have a traction plan with Ambev to have 100 hubs till next year. And we also, new clients got on board, Unilever, IBEMA, The Inc. and Reload. And also other companies came to understand how we work and how they can bring their material back to the recycling chain. So we understand that the solution is being very well understood by the market. We have an interesting recognition from the press, from São Paulo City Hall and City Council and Government of Brasilia. And we got prizes in Belgium on Better Road Award, first place in Climate Launchpad Brazil, and in Green Tech Challenge, Norwich program. Also, we've been to many seminars, including Sardinia 2019 last year. So this is our team. We already have hired 33 collectors. We have 4 people on our back office. These are my 2 partners. And last but not least, coming soon in this year, we're gonna release our platform that we call the democratization of recycling, where we're gonna engage consumers through rewarding. So thanks a lot, everyone. That's Green Mining, and Antonella, please, I'm looking forward to the results.
Okay, yeah. Thanks a lot, Rodrigo. Thanks a lot, Beatrice, again. It was super interesting. We are receiving different questions, at least 8. Probably, Richeri, would you like to, I think they are all most of them for Beatrice, if I'm right. There's also something, no, there is for everyone. Rodrigo, Richeri, do you want to pick one, probably? And we can start answering.
Sure. I could go quickly through the question of Dr. De Lucia Angelo that asked, elaborating on innovation support to circular economy, what framework of policy innovation you think is needed? And is there any examples or comparison between low and high income city? Well, this is a very complex question, but I think I could quote quickly 2 examples. First, I would have to say that when we're talking about innovation, I think 3 aspects are always indispensable. That is to foster education, to foster research and development, and to give people the ability to pursue entrepreneurship. So the facility to conduct entrepreneurship. We can mention that in Brazil, for example, we have in the Congress the legal framework for startups, which is allowing the innovation in terms of how investments can be pursued and in some corporation models. So I think this is an interesting model to take a look. And another model that we can highlight as a comparison, of course, is the European model, where we have, for example, the Horizon Europe programs with the EITs and all their supports to innovation through education programs and research and development investment. But we can surely keep on the discussion through email if there's any other doubts that we can talk about. Thank you.
Probably there is a question for Beatrice. Here is someone, I would like to know how the government of São Paulo is involved in probably in your projects. Do you have you been involved with the city in some way?
Yeah, we had this event in the city of São Paulo last year, and the mayor office was involved, and they brought some of their staff to take part in the discussion, bringing information and bringing the commitment to get some of the ideas and the solutions that we were proposing to apply in the current scenario. But they are already having a lot of projects focused on food and organics. So as Richeri mentioned, they done some work with the Ella MacArthur Foundation for the food initiative. So we just started this discussion with them. We hope to continue and develop an action plan. But our focus is much more in gathering the businesses, gathering the companies to analyze what we could actually do together, and as a group join efforts to bring the government on board, to bring innovation incentives on board. So we start from the industry. We believe that the industry has the power to change and bring solutions.
Okay, so there is also a question for Rodrigo. He is how the waste is weighted and the pickers receive a fixed salary. This is the question.
The waste is weighted with the scales, the same scale that we use for luggage, that goes to 30 kilos at most. So they take it with the scale with us. It's a mobile scale. So that's how they weight. So the waste is weighted 3 times. So they do the first one and bring it to the wagon. So the transportation made the second to confirm all those weights that were made before. So the transportation, the wagon is weighted as well. And the recycling plant do the third one. So we got 3 confirmations on smart contract to guarantee that the first weighted was correct.
Okay. And the pickers have a fixed salary, or?
Yes. They have fixed salary. They have
Okay.
it's 25% more than the minimum wage. So because they work for 6 hours. So they have a fixed salary.
Okay, and there is also a question about the government. Why isn't the government helping to upscale the recycling industry in Brazil, even though they are doing the most noble job in a circular economy?
Well, talking about São Paulo, if you can compare, São Paulo is the only city that has two MRF facilities for the recyclables. So they did a very huge investment, and they have collections for material. The problem on my side is that people is not engaged on sorting recyclable one stream. Thinking about multiple stream would be much harder, but the two facilities that there are in São Paulo, they work on half of their capacity today.
Okay. I think we reply almost to all the questions. Okay, so there is one about rural areas. Are there any good example of circular economy regarding rural areas? I cannot reply to this one probably. So they're asking about Brazil. Do you know something specifically regarding? So probably they're talking about probably more food, and I don't know if anyone can reply to this. So probably if we cannot, we can try to reply even after. In any case, after the webinar.
Could maybe just mention two important inputs to deal, especially in Brazil when we're talking about urban rural areas. That is to look at regenerative agriculture, and to always take a look at the biological cycles on the butterfly graphic at the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, for example. So very linked to the question of how we are using the flows of pesticides and how chemicals are being used, how water used in the rural areas. So that would be a good point to start.
Okay, so in any case, I think there are not specific additional questions. We are already 5 minutes in delay. So again, I would like to thank everyone who participated. I know there was a problem with the password for many of you, and I'm really sorry about that. I hope most of you managed to enter on time. In any case, everything is recorded. So we will send the video to everyone, which will be available on YouTube. And we will share also the slide that will be sent to everyone. We will send everything tomorrow morning with also a questionnaire. So just to get a feedback about the webinar and how we can improve, and also to see if everyone would like to collaborate with us in any way. And we can also, I see there are more questions coming up, but we will try to if there is any other question, we will try to answer by tomorrow as well. Okay? Thanks again to everyone, and have a nice evening or day if you are in Brazil. Okay? Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.